Hi everyone, my name is Junon. I have a health science background. I'm an author and the creator of the Truth and Empathy Questionnaire. In this video, we're going to be exploring the Orderly Rationalist, or in the MBTI, it would translate to the NTJs, or the Intuitive Thinkers, who are also judges. So one of the first things that we need to know about this group is that it's among the smallest percentage of the population. So there's just I think that based on the latest statistics that I've read is like you're talking about like maybe 3% because there's the introverted and extrovert version. So it's a very small percentage. That's why, like, if let's say you see a group of people and say, oh, well, there are thousands and thousands of people who are that type, most likely they are probably the sensors, like the ESTJs or the ISTJs, who believe that they are intuitives, or in the Truth and Empathy Questionnaire would be the conceptualist. And as I mentioned in another video, how do you know that you are mostly an intuitive versus a sensor, or if you are a conceptualist versus a realist in the Truth and Empathy Questionnaire? It has to do with how do you gather your information. So are you mostly about gathering data, and then you see a pattern so that you can decide, okay, well, since this pattern has been going for a while, I can predict, I can extrapolate from this data what will happen. With intuitives, it's not the way it usually works. It's that they know the answer to a question, and usually it's a complex question, and then they have to gather the data to prove that point. So they might they don't even know why they know this is the right answer, but years later you realize that they were right. Is intuition correct 100% of the time? No. So most of the time it's correct. I think that intuition is most effective when you have a very complex question. So let's say if you were to say, okay, should I, let's say, move to another city? Should I marry this person? Should I start this business? Or is this the love of my life? When there are so many factors that it's difficult to sort of gather enough data to get to this answer, intuition is probably the best way to go about deciding what to do. So when it comes to this group of intuitives, is that they tend to, or conceptualists, they are very much about yes, gathering it, but also compared to the spontaneous rationalists who like to play with ideas in their head, and it doesn't really matter if it becomes concrete, like it materializes. With this type, they do want to implement these ideas. So you'll see, for instance, a famous ENTJ or orderly rationalist, and it's the extrovert type, would be Napoleon Bonaparte. Or if you have another one who's the introverted version, is Sir Isaac Newton. So you'll see these are people who would need to implement to say, okay, let me see in the real world if it actually works. So they are the most masculine type. So in other words, they are very left brain, and they have issues with relationships because it's very difficult for them to even understand their own emotions, let alone their partners. So if you look at their function stack, their feeling function is very much below, and it's not even a function that has to do with the other person; it has to do with themselves. So if let's say a person is in a relationship with this person, is that you probably would be the one to help them navigate the emotional and sort of like the emotional tone of any situation. So they will probably need a partner who can guide them because it simply doesn't connect. These are people who are good at leading others. Now the introverted version are not necessarily that, so they're not going to be the ones who are trying to influence others. So they're probably more the type to be reclusive. Like one interesting aspect of the orderly rationalists, or the NTJs, is that they tend to be religious, which seems like a contradiction in terms because they are very left brain dominant. But yet, what happens is that although they are, obviously more, very much more masculine energy, but because they are highly intuitive, so very highly conceptualist, is that at some point they come to the conclusion that the complexity of this universe is such that there should be a higher being that organized this universe. So, interesting enough, you'll see more atheists that are the spontaneous rationalists, or the NTPs, than the NTJs, which most people are not aware of. They like depth, so this is the type of people who have a long attention span. They like to dive deep into a subject, and I think it's very important. Like, if someone wonders, okay, are they an ESTJ versus an ENTJ? One of the main differences is that it has to do with whether they are more traditional or not. So this group are very non-traditional, so they usually go against the grain. They're not about, okay, well, I have to follow society's rules and regulations. They're not like that. They like to cut through red tape. Same thing, let's say, if you're wondering if you're on an INTJ versus an ISTJ, same thing. It has to do with how your brain is wired. And again, because the orderly rationalists are very intuitive, very more of a conceptualist, they are probably the ones who get the most of these hunches that, again, does not require the gathering of data. Actually, they're even more intuitive than the spontaneous rationalist. So that's how, they're very much like. That's why when you look at history, someone like Isaac Newton stands out, because he had, ideas that are really way ahead of his time. So this probably gives you some idea of what this group is about. So I trust that this information was interesting and you've learned something. Now, please click on the like button and then join our Facebook group, and talk to you soon.